So it's May 8th, 2022 is special conventional day. This year is Mother's Day, Sunday. So I've been thinking about my mom, stepmom, my sisters, and other mothers I know. I think for many of us, it's thinking about this day is recollecting. For many of us, maybe not for all people, but just recollecting that kindness that's been given to us from our own mothers, and hopefully it's also for those who are mothers, also recollecting their own kindness. I brought up recently in a meeting just the sense of the word mother for each of us that has our own personal meaning, and each of us will probably, almost everyone on the planet has some notion, some feeling, some emotion that comes up just in thinking of that word mother, what it means to each of us. And so I think the word for myself that comes up is gratitude. I think there's a sense of gratitude that I've developed, especially as a Buddhist monk, that I think is, and ever since I started practicing the Buddha's teachings, that's come up, recognizing the gratitude for that special relationship I've had. I think there was a famous quote by the Dalai Lama. It was kind of humorous. I like to think about it more that he was talking about the archetype of mother, but he said that there is a very special relationship that a child has with its mother, for the most part. So as he was talking about how special that relationship was, and somebody said, well, of course, what about the father? This sort of egalitarian question came up. And he said, nope, not the father. This is a very, the father's relationship is different, and a very special relationship that comes from this caring relationship that a mother has with her children. And so I, of course, see that as more the archetype of the mother. Sometimes children have fathers who actually act in that role in a similar way. But I think what's come up for me is that sort of sense of gratitude. I was lucky growing up to actually have two mothers. My stepmother as well. Whenever I spent time with her and my father, then I was, again, there's a lot of gratitude that comes up from that relationship, because not all stepmoms treat their kids that were not born to them as they do with their own kids. But I was lucky enough to actually have a stepmom who did that. And I think later on I recognized that in myself, how I identified her, because I would say my dad and Abby. Her name was Abby, and I rarely referred to her as my stepmom, but it was always my dad and Abby, and I think it was my Abby was the way that I thought of it. I didn't recognize that until later. So she was this other mother, which was quite special. But yeah, just many of us likely spoke to our mothers today, for those of us whose moms are still alive or accessible. And so that sense of gratitude, that gratitude can come up. And I think the way that I relate to it is the Buddha talks about it with this word katanyu. He also uses the word katawedi, which sometimes is translated as appreciation, but they're very related to each other. The interesting aspect of the word is that this word katanyu is translated as recognizing what has been done. And so when we think about gratitude in that way, it's quite special. It helps us think about, right, there has to be a recognition of kindness, a recognition of somebody doing something for us out of kindness. We can say, I have gratitude for having these robes, or I have gratitude for having food, but if we're not recognizing that food or the robes, these came from people, either the people who grew the food, or the people who made the food, or stitched the cloth, or picked the cotton, or involved in farming in some way. So you have a sense of that goodness coming forth, some kindness, and especially as a monk or a nun, that's something that we are very fortunate to be able to recollect just in a momentary way all the time, because our whole lives are given to us, from the food to the clothing we wear, the buildings that are around us, the medicines we have. This is all given. And so there is that sense of, if we lend our minds to it, being able to recollect that quite easily. But it's also something that we want to bring up for ourselves, because it can be easily forgotten, and things can, in many ways in life, just very often be a rote experience, just kind of forgetting or not recognizing that goodness. And even it can move into a sense of ingratitude or expectation that we deserve something or we should have something. So just one of the nice things about today is that we get to have a reminder of that special relationship that we have with our mothers, and also just recognizing all mothers, what they do, bringing up a child. I'm not sure if it was the Buddha who said this, but I know it's been said before that even when people are said to have a hard time having a sense of gratitude, they might have had a complicated relationship with their mothers. There's that sense of, well, you can still look at the fact that there was a person who carried you for 9 months, 9.5 months, 10 months, and so that is something that all of us can be grateful for. So there's sort of bare minimum, and then we have all of those people who have helped us in our lives. The sense of that recognition, though, is very important for us, because it's not just about acknowledging that there was something that's been done for us. It's also that there's like a sense of kindness that's been done for us. So somebody was kind to us, they did something that was very kind, and even like went to through some effort to actually do that. And when I think about this as an example of like what mothers have done, or parents in general, for their children, it's quite awe-inspiring. It's pretty incredible. Just when I think about how much my mom or my stepmom, for example, put up with me, and especially I remember some pretty rough teenager years, slamming the door and telling my mom to go away, or things like that. It's. I don't think it's always a job that one would experience as a role of having someone who's always having a sense of gratitude around it. So there can be that expectation, and yet there's that beautiful patience, that continuing patience that I can remember from my parents in general, around just dealing with those growing pains, those difficulties growing up as a child, and just having a caring figure who patiently went through that with me, and how rare that is. So I think as I've gotten older, it's definitely penetrated more deeply, especially kind of coming to the monastery and having to recognize where I can try to also recognize that within myself, to ensure that I'm trying to always be kind to others, and remembering that kindness that was done to me, and that it takes some effort. It's not something that just comes with ease or not giving up. So the Buddha also talked about a sense of debt that we owe our parents in that way. We recognize that gratitude. And most of you are familiar with the sutta where he says that even if one is to carry, Tansudiko actually brought this up, I think about a week ago, just to carry one's mother and father on one's shoulders, and in the time this was sort of a normal thing, to anoint them with oils and massage their limbs and care for them, and even if he uses a kind of extreme metaphor. He says even if they voided on your shoulder, and you carried them around and everywhere and established them as sort of world emperors, you still wouldn't have repaid the debt of gratitude that you owe them. So, and in establishing right view, the Buddha also talks about the relationship that one has to one's parents as being very special in terms of having been born to your particular mother or father. So these conditions set up a sense of not only gratitude, but oh yeah, there's something that's owed here. And while the Buddha says there are lots of things you can do for your parents, he says that essentially establishing them in a sense of virtue or sila is extremely important, and also faith. So faith in this way would be in the Buddha's teachings. It's called satta. And he also points to establishing them in wisdom and discernment, and generosity, remembering that that condition of generosity might not always be there for someone, and the Buddha just really encourages that as something that's a prerequisite to real understanding, is that sense of being able to give, to, in a sense, also that kindness we give to others. So we also repay that debt by establishing ourselves in Dhamma. And these are some of the ways we can help repay that debt that we owe, and also express our gratitude towards our parents. And so it's quite an effort to actually be able to do that, establish ourselves in Dhamma, to help them in that way. These are things that would also take that recognition of kindness that's been done to us. And when I think about that sense of expressing gratitude for the kindness that's been done to me through my parents, I see it here as a field where that's possible for me to do that, and I think it's really helpful, whether one's in a monastery or just we're not in a monastery, to see that there are ways that we can generate gratitude and recognize gratitude, and also deliver it through our own kindness to others. Because as I said, that real recognition of gratitude comes from seeing like, oh yeah, there has been kindness done to me. And so when we recognize that through other people, then we want to do that for others as well. And that does require a sense of, in terms of not holding back sometimes. Sometimes we want to oh, not right now. I'd rather not help, or I'd rather not do something. And then we need to sometimes make that effort, remembering those things that those who've cared through us throughout our lives, not only our parents, but others have done the same for us. So that's why in our tradition, it's also a sense we ask. We offer respect to our teachers. We offer respect to the Buddha. We often will ask forgiveness from our teachers, and so that's also a sense of kind of like seeing that world of gratitude and expression of understanding the kindness that's been done to us is very present for us. But I'd have to say it's something that's sort of like sometimes I like to use the metaphor of an engine being started. We have to kind of get that engine going. It's not always there for us. And there is, again, that word recognition that has to happen. So I don't think, personally I can say that it's not always there, and I think that how that comes up is it's sort of like, it needs to be a habit for myself. I need to develop it and continue it as a habit. The recognition of kindness and the expression of gratitude. And so for me, it really is looking for things that I'm not always seeing. There was a nice example today that, or a couple that actually it happens all the time. It's quite nice living here in this monastery. But I think it was yesterday, Tan Sampano asked me if I needed a gas tank at my kuti, and I said, oh yeah, I actually did need a tank. And I said, I think there might be one over in this spot that's usually left, but I haven't gotten it yet. And he said, oh yeah, I'll ask someone to bring it up there, or bring it up myself. And I said, no, it's no problem, I'll do it later. And then when I was at my kuti today, I looked down and there's 2 gas tanks there. I thought, oh, that's not always the normal thing out in the world. That kind of just that kindness that's done. That seeing that there can be something kind for another individual and doing it. But I could also see it going another way, where I could have actually heard Tan Sampano say that to me, and I might have said to him, in a way like, don't worry about it, but hint, hint, yeah, you should bring it up there. And so that's something we have to be careful of, because luckily that wasn't in my mind, but I could see that there can be a tendency for sometimes that to happen if we take for granted when others are doing things for us. And also recognizing when people do things like that, it's not like there's really something in it for them, except when they recognize that just doing good things is good for them. So I just to sort of rejoice in that. There's a lot of mudita that comes from that. When I see something like that done, oh, that's quite beautiful. It makes me realize that the life that I live is quite beautiful, and I have this gratitude for being in a place where that's possible, to see these acts of kindness. I had just had a meeting right before the puja, and it ran a bit late, and so I came in with my cup and bowl to wash, and immediately Tan Damorao just without question just grabbed it, and then Ajahn Titapanyo kind of put his more in his cubby, and then Tan Damorao said, actually, can you bring me yours too? I'll wash that too. So this sort of insistence on helping others out, seeing that we were coming in late and getting ready, and it wasn't like Tan Damorao was saying, well, I'm going to be late, I'm not going to actually do that, I'm not going to help. I have to look after myself, let these others be late, or whatever it might be. So that was that very kind gesture that can occur, and so that it is a difference I've experienced, and just in the training here of seeing all of these good and kind acts that occur, and I don't think that I would be able to see that if I couldn't recognize kindness, if I couldn't recognize others doing things out of feeling a sense of wanting to do good for others. So what we see in the monastery and hopefully what happens in the world is that these acts are not only done, but they're very much recognized as a model. So they're model behaviors for us to see. And I also see that as I get more senior in my years in the monastery, I have to be careful around, oh yes, I want to keep generating that model so that I'm not falling into an expectation or a sense of ingratitude, a sense of that things should be done. And so that's something that I see in my own behavior to try to make an effort towards not happening. In our community here, there's an emphasis on trying to do what I've been describing, for example, with these two monks. This sense of like, oh, it's not always me first, or there's a sense of letting go of that quality. And what we gain out of that is that sense of self-importance sort of fading away, or me and mine, and self-protection really kind of gets demoted, and what gets propped up is more of a caring sense of others. And I like to think Ajahn Sucitto sometimes will talk about how one of his main practices is, he talks about it in the relational realm, how he relates to others. And this is not always something that we think about when we come to monasteries or to practice the Buddha's teachings, even though the Buddha is very vocal about one's sense of not being the center of the world, that we are practicing with others, and we need to be very careful with how we conduct ourselves with other people. That if we conduct ourselves wrongly, for example, we can actually shatter faith in the entire teaching that the Buddha has brought forth. So there's a carefulness involved, a heedfulness involved in how we are with others, and we're generating that out of seeing like, oh, the opposite of kindness, or someone being mean or difficult, or thinking of themselves and leaving us behind in a way. This is very hard to bear. So we see the opportunity to go in the opposite direction as being so important to our practice. The thing that I think about, like as I was talking about with something like establishing one's parents in generosity, is when we establish ourselves in that, at first it's hard to kind of clearly see it, that tendency to want to hold on to what we have, to our own things, to protect either our own material possessions or our sense of time or our sense of space, whatever it might be. It's a very natural attitude to have. And as we have it, and as we kind of take care of that attitude, we see that, well, this is a benefit. I have things. I keep things. I get my space. I get my time. And sometimes it's hard to see that then when one enacts feelings of greed or taking or something, it's like, well, I took it and I got it. And so that sometimes comes up, but when we go the effort then to move in the opposite direction, we sort of recognize other people, we recognize the goodness that they can receive from us not doing those things or us looking after them. It takes some effort to go through that. But then the feeling that arises is so much more spacious and inviting and happy and clear, and enjoy, we can enjoy it so much more when we're giving of others, when we put that sense of jealousy or greed or singleness of minds for ourselves aside. And what comes is just this more relaxed and peaceful experience around others. So we don't have a sense of needing to defend ourselves anymore. And in fact, what can come out of that is a habit of kindness and giving. But again, this takes effort. We have to kind of go against these natural instincts that we have, the anusaya, the underlying tendencies that we can have that promote that sense of, well, I just have to look after me and mine first. And the irony of all of that is once we start to learn about this kindness and generosity and having gratitude for others, that becomes a voice that's much easier to ignore or to see the fallacy, the natural fallacy of that sense of greed or keeping or jealousy or wanting to have things, being selfish. We see it as more like just a mirage. It loses its tendency to overtake us and have us like believe in it as something to treasure. Instead, we start to treasure our own abilities to be kind and look after others. I'm not sure if, as relating to mothers and Mother Day, that comes naturally when one becomes a mother. I think probably, I would guess, it's a sort of negotiated thing at first. It's like, wow, I have this being I'm looking after. My sister, one of my younger sisters now has a 3-year-old, and I'm seeing, my niece grow over the years, and just seeing that my sister Sarah and her husband Tito are taking care of this being, and so much of their life is involved in really that generosity and care. My stepmom was telling me tonight that my niece Aliyah, their daughter, is sick, and so that she said, that they usually bring her in their bed during that times, and just to care for her and help her out, and just thinking about so much giving that I've received from my own mom and my Abby. It really does help me kind of to see like, oh yeah, there's so much that I can do in the same vein. There's so much of a contribution I can try to make in the same way. And it helps me also, I think it kind of trained me as a monk in a way. It trained me to recognize that in the gifts of others here, and also to try to extend that gift myself, that gift of kindness that is not always so common in the world. I think there were some videos that have been done over the past years where there's so much of an attempt to represent bad news and negative things, violence and aggression, that I remember seeing some videos of just people doing good acts for others, doing kind things for others. And just noticing when I saw some of those, how uplifting that is. Just seeing like recordings of acts after acts of just kindness and goodness. And I do wish for the world that that's what what most people watched, if they ever saw anything in a video form. But being in a monastery, I don't really have to watch that kind of thing. I can see it here so much, just unfolding, because that is the ethos that is taught here. It's the ethos that the Buddha encouraged, and luckily through our wise teachers here with Lumpur Pasno and Ajahn Cunda, Ajahn Amaro when he lived here, and Ajahn Yaniko as the abbot, but all of the monks here as well, just imbibing that sense of kindness, looking out for others, and the effort, it takes some effort to do that. So then there is, again, that sense of gratitude that can arise out of seeing that and recognizing, essentially somebody going out of their way to do something to help and be kind to others. And so what that provides for the mind is just such an uplifting quality. Just seeing these kind acts and doing them, trying to do them myself, then the mind isn't, it just has a sense of letting go. And it's opposite of the feeling of jealousy or greed or selfishness or me and mine. So what's nice is that when we have Gatanyu, when we have that recognition for what's been done, we recognize it in ourselves, we recognize it in others, and then it just keeps us going. It keeps that momentum going, that habit going. So we start to kind of gather that force, and it's like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger. And then we want to see sometimes where maybe that's the snowball's kind of stopping or losing momentum, and we want to keep that momentum going in ourselves. So there's often ways that we don't see that, we don't see these opportunities, and they're great opportunities to have. But when we don't extend ourselves, sometimes we feel safe. We think, okay, that's the right thing. I didn't have to put myself out there. But then when we do, I think it's important to exercise that sense of awareness, a recognition around when we've done something kind for others, and to remember that. So the Buddha really talks about that as a recollection of our own generosity, recollection of our own kindness, and it's no small thing. That's something that I think if all of us did, throughout the day, but also did at the end of the day, kind of remembering these things is a good thing, rather than focusing on regrets, then we have this quality. We can kind of, as I said, keep the momentum going. So it depends on this recognition. It depends on Gatanyu, gratitude as a recognition of kindness. So I think just in remembrance of all of those who have done kindness for us, done kind acts for us, and looked after us throughout our lives, but also in remembrance of our own goodness, our own kindness that we've extended to others. I just want to encourage that as a teaching on this Mother's Day, and just kind of looking after our own hearts, and in so doing also helping others through our own kindness. So whatever I've said tonight that's been helpful, please take with you, and anything else, just feel free to leave behind. You're welcome.